Welcome to Fiction Flux. Today, we're kicking off a brand new fanfic. What if female Deku had a quirk that manipulates emotions? This is going to be one thrilling ride, full of twists, turns, and all the drama you didn't know you needed. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. Let's get started. It all started when Izumi Midoriya was 5 years old. While other kids were breathing fire or floating in midair, she accidentally made her neighbor cry, because she told him his sandwich looked lonely. At first, her mom thought she was just very dramatic. But then, weird things started happening. A kid bullied her at preschool, she looked at him with tears in her eyes, and the next second, he started hugging everyone and apologizing. That's when they realized, Izumi had a quirk. She could mess with emotions. Make people happy, sad, angry, calm, you name it. But she couldn't control it properly, especially when she was nervous. That was the real twist. By the time she got into UA, her powers were stronger, but still a little wild. And trust me, in a school full of hormonal teens and overpowered future heroes, an emotion-controlling girl was basically a walking drama bomb. The first day in Class 1A, Aizawa walked in like a zombie wrapped in a scarf. He looked at Izumi and said, "Midoriya, you better keep your quirk in check." She nodded. "Yes, sir." 10 minutes later, he smiled. Everyone stopped breathing. Kirishima whispered, "Bro, is he okay?" Denki looked scared. "Do we call recovery girl or an exorcist?" Aizawa blinked, realized what he did, and then turned to Izumi. "You're on Eraserhead watch for a week." And just like that, her legend began. Things got worse when emotions started leaking out during training. One day she accidentally made Bakugo feel joy. "Deku," he screamed, cheeks twitching as he tried to not smile. "Why'd I feel bubbly?" She panicked. "I'm sorry. It's my anxiety. You're absorbing my joy pulse." He threw a rock at her. "Stop feeling positive." Later, she made Todoroki feel super awkward around girls. Momo asked him to pass the salt, and he blurted out, "Your voice sounds like expensive tea." Then immediately facepalmed into his food. "Oh God," he whispered. "Why did I say that?" Izumi just buried her face in her arms. "I'm a social disaster with legs." Still, she tried. She trained hard. Unlike the others, her power wasn't flashy. But when a villain attacked downtown, while others fought with fists, Izumi reached out with feelings. She made the villain feel his mother's disappointment. He sat down and cried. "I just wanted to be loved." Cops took him away sobbing. Izumi. She got a medal. Best therapy without a license. But the real chaos came during the UA school festival. She wanted everyone to feel super excited. So she boosted the audience with a wave of joy. Big mistake. Todoroki walked to the mic and said, "Midoriya, your presence makes me feel like a warm fireplace in winter." Bakugo screamed, "I want to hug you and I hate it." Mineta cried and proposed to a mop. Kaminari confessed his love to the electric socket. "Midoriya," Uraraka shouted, "turn it off before I marry a wall." She panicked, flailed her arms, and accidentally hit Aizawa with a double wave of peace and love. Aizawa smiled again. Everyone passed out from shock. Later, she sat in the dorm hallway, munching on rice balls with a blank stare. "I just wanted good vibes." Then Bakugo sat next to her, arms crossed. "TCH. You're annoying." She looked at him. "Thanks." He added, "But, your dumb feelings saved that villain." That was pretty damn cool. She blinked. "Wait, did you just compliment me?" He growled. "No, shut up. I'll blow up your happiness." She laughed, snorting. "Rice." Yeah, her power wasn't perfect. She made people laugh when they wanted to fight. Cry when they wanted to joke. Blush when they were trying to be serious. But in a world full of chaos, pain, and pressure, maybe that kind of quirk wasn't so bad. Because sometimes, the strongest power is just making someone feel something real. After the school festival disaster or masterpiece, depending on who you asked, Izumi became known as the emotional queen of UA. Not the title she wanted, but hey, at least people weren't afraid of her anymore. Well, except Bakugo. He started avoiding eye contact. Every time she walked into a room, he'd either leave or pretend to be asleep. Izumi started wondering, did I permanently break his emotional circuits or something? One night, while everyone else was chilling in the common room, Izumi sat by the window, doodling little hearts on her notebook. Not because she was in love, okay. Just practicing. Hearts were nice shapes. That's it. You've been real quiet lately, Uraraka said, hopping up with snacks like the supportive best friend she was. Something on your mind? Izumi blushed. It's nothing. I just think I might like someone. Cue choking noises from behind the couch. Kaminari stood up. Who, none of your beeswax, she said, chucking a pillow at his face. But word got out. Because UA gossip moves faster than Todoroki on ice skates. Now here's the thing, her quirk was acting weird. Around this one person, it kept flaring randomly. Her cheeks would get warm, her heart would race, and the emotions in the air would start swirling like a storm made of butterflies and glitter. That person, Bakugo. Yeah, the walking grenade. She didn't know when it happened. Maybe when he defended her during a villain attack and screamed, "Only I get to yell at her." Or when he sat next to her at lunch and silently passed her extra katsudon without a word. Or when he smiled at her. Once. And she almost fainted. But she was sure now. She liked Bakugo. Problem was, her quirk was leaking love vibes every time she saw him. People around them were getting way too affectionate. Todoroki started baking cookies. Aoyama sang a love ballad to his own reflection. Even Iida started saying, "I believe in emotional honesty," with a serious face. So one evening, she decided, "I'm gonna confess. No quirk nonsense. Just me." She found Bakugo outside, sitting on the rooftop, looking at the stars like a cool anime boy. She sat beside him, knees shaking. He didn't look at her. "What do you want, nerd?" She inhaled deeply. "Okay, listen, I like you." Silence. She panicked. Not like, wanna hold hands and run through a flower field, like. More like, you're cool and I think about you too much and you have cool arms and you're weirdly kind sometimes, kind of like. And I know I'm a mess and my quirk makes people confess to microwaves, but this is real, okay? This is 100% emotion-free. Wait, that sounds bad, I mean it's not my coup. Bakugo kissed her, right there, soft, quick, but definitely a kiss. She blinked. He looked away immediately. "Shut up," he muttered. "You talk too much." Then softer, "I like you too." Her brain, blue screen of death. Her mouth, blehu a kiss, what emotion overload. And boom, her quirk flared. All of UA that night. Full-on love fever. Suyu gave hugs. Mineta cried watching a cat video. Even Endeavor reportedly complimented Hawks. Meanwhile, Izumi and Bakugo just sat there, both red as tomatoes. "I think I broke the school again," she whispered. Bakugo smirked. "Yeah, but you're my disaster now." And for once, her heart was louder than her quirk. So, after the kiss, things got weird. Not in a bad way. Just weird. Izumi and Bakugo were now a thing. Kinda. Maybe. Technically. They didn't exactly make an announcement or anything, but word got around. Mostly because Kaminari saw them holding hands and screamed, "The grenade got a girlfriend." Like it was the end of the world. Bakugo almost chased him into another dimension. Now, dating Bakugo was an adventure. He wasn't exactly a bouquet and poetry guy. His idea of flirting was, "You better eat all your food or I'll explode your leftovers." Or, "You look nice today. Don't make it weird." Izumi, meanwhile, kept accidentally triggering emotions during their dates. On one movie night, she got so nervous she made the entire theater cry during the opening logo. Todoroki, with tears running down his cheeks, that Pixar lamp, just wanted to shine. Bakugo tried to act cool, but even he teared up. "Damn it Midoriya, why am I crying at a cartoon?" Still, they made it work. Sort of. Until one day, a new villain showed up, code name, Reverie. Creepy smile, trench coat, and a power that amplified emotions. Like, made your feelings explode out of control. Which was basically Izumi's worst nightmare. Because guess what happens when her quirk and his power collide? Answer, chaos. They found that out during a rescue mission. UA students were evacuating civilians when Reverie appeared on a rooftop, smiling like he knew everyone's darkest secrets. "Oh, look," he said. "The emotional girl. Let's play." Izumi froze. Her heart skipped. Her emotions flared. Then reverie boosted her power. Instantly, everyone within 100 meters was hit by a wave of feelings. Villains started crying mid-fight. Heroes dropped their weapons and began hugging each other. Kirishima was trying to wrestle a villain while yelling, "You're not a bad guy, you're just misunderstood." Meanwhile, Mineta was curled in a ball sobbing, "I just wanted to be loved by a lamppost." And Bakugo, oh boy, he looked at Izumi with red eyes, not from anger, but from something deeper. "You could have died," he whispered, shaking. "And I wouldn't even have told you how much I." Then he tackled Reverie. The fight was messy. Bakugo held him off, Todoroki froze his boots, and Izumi, breathing hard, focused her quirk into one emotion, peace. And just like that, Reverie slumped over, calm as a guy who just finished a spa day. After the battle, Izumi collapsed against a wall, drained. Bakugo sat beside her, breathing heavily. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm fine. I hate feeling like I'm a walking mood swing." He looked at her, really looked. "No teasing. No yelling. You're not a mood swing," he said. "You're a damn reminder that feelings aren't weakness." She blinked. That was, oddly poetic. He groaned. "Don't make it weird." Then he leaned over, kissed her forehead, and added, "You're strong. You feel everything, and still keep going. That's badass." She smiled. Sure, she might cause random love confessions, theater-wide sob fests, and the occasional emotional meltdown. But she also saved lives, changed hearts, and somehow, stole the heart of UA's angriest boy. And in that moment, with Bakugo beside her, she didn't feel like a mess. She felt seen. A few weeks after the Reverie incident, things should have calmed down. But nope. This is UA. Instead, the teachers gathered Class 1A and 1B in the gym with serious faces. Aizawa stood at the front, arms crossed like always. "There's a new villain group. They're targeting students with emotion-based quirks. Midoriya, you're a primary target." Izumi, mid-sip of juice, choked. "Me, again." "Yes," he said flatly. "They call themselves, the Balance. Real original. Their goal is to wipe out what they call, emotion disruptors." Bakugo cracked his knuckles. "They try anything, I'll turn him into emotional dust." Aizawa sighed. "That's not a thing. But thank you, Bakugo." Training got intense after that. They paired up students to protect each other during missions. Izumi was stuck with Bakugo, obviously. Not that she minded. Well, except for when he yelled motivational things like, "Dojo or die, dummy," while throwing spark explosions 2 inches from her face. One mission took them to a shopping district. They were supposed to just patrol. Simple, chill, maybe buy snacks. But nope. Because Balance attacked. They came out of nowhere, masked creeps wearing blank white suits and talking like self-help gurus. "Let go of emotion," one of them said, blocking a kid's escape route. "Become a vessel of peace through silence." Izumi looked at Bakugo. Did they just try to villain monologue with yoga energy? He growled, "Can I blow 'em up now?" Yup. Boom. Fists flew, quirks flared, buildings barely survived. Izumi held back, trying to stay calm. If she lost control again like last time, who knows what kind of emotional hurricane she'd unleash. But the leader of Balance found her. A tall woman with pale blue eyes and a voice like a therapist who secretly hated kids. "You are the core," she whispered. "Your heart disturbs the world's rhythm." "Lady," Izumi snapped, "I disturb cafeteria lunch lines, not the world." But the villain grabbed her wrist and activated a suppression quirk. Izumi felt her power being crushed, like a faucet being forcefully turned off. Her emotions, numb, like someone put her whole heart on mute. She couldn't move, couldn't feel. Then, boom, Bakugo landed like a meteor. "Get away from her." He blasted the villain back, scooped Izumi up like a knight with anger issues, and growled, "You okay?" I don't know," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "I feel nothing. It's like, I lost myself." Bakugo didn't say anything. He just pulled her close, forehead against hers. "You're not your quirk. You're still you. And I'll punch anyone who says otherwise. Including that creepy yoga club." And somehow, that broke the suppression. Her power rushed back in like a warm flood. She could feel again. Fear, relief, anger, love, all of it. Emotions burst out of her and hit everyone in the area. Villains collapsed crying. One of them stared at a tree and whispered, "I miss my cat." Bakugo didn't flinch. He held Izumi steady through the chaos, like her anchor. Later, as the sun set and the police took the villains away, Izumi sat beside him on the rooftop of a nearby building. "You saved me," she said quietly. He shrugged. "Yeah, well, you save me every damn day. With your feelings and weird emotional sparkles or whatever." She chuckled. "Emotional sparkles? Shut up." Then he looked at her. Really looked. "You know, when we graduate and go pro," he hesitated, then muttered, "I wanna be your partner." She smiled. "Like hero partners or kissing and awkward hand-holding partners." He blushed violently. "Both, you nerd." She tackled him in a hug, laughing. He caught her. Didn't even pretend to push her off this time. And up on that rooftop, surrounded by chaos and feelings, explosions and peace, they sat. Two disasters in love, saving the world, one emotion at a time. A few years later, Izumi Midoriya, now officially known as Hero, Pulse, stood on top of a crumbling rooftop, hair blowing in the wind, eyes glowing faint pink as her quirk radiated through the city. She wasn't the same jittery girl who once cried over Pixar logos. She was a pro now. Confident, powerful, still emotional as hell, but now she owned it. Across the street, explosions lit up the sky. And yes, there he was. Hero, Blast King. Because of course Bakugo picked the most extra name possible. Still yelling, still angry, still, hers. "Oi, Pulse," he barked over the comms. "You better not be crying over those orphans again, we're on the clock." "I'm crying because you just yelled at a grandma by accident." She shot back. She looked suspicious. She was holding a pie, Katsuki. They were Tokyo's most dramatic hero couple. Paparazzi loved them. Twitter was obsessed. People shipped them like it was a full-time job. But they were unstoppable. And today, they were chasing down the biggest threat since All for One, a villain named Echo, who had a terrifying ability. He could reflect emotions back at people, like a cursed mirror. Anger turned into self-loathing. Love into obsession. Fear into full-on panic attacks. He'd already taken down 3 hero agencies in 1 week. Now, he was targeting Pulse, because her emotions. They were nuclear-level strong. "You're too loud, Pulse," Echo said, standing at the top of a broken building, his voice echoing in every direction. "People like you disrupt the balance. I will silence your heart." Izumi narrowed her eyes. "You can try." Bakugo landed beside her, cracked his neck, and muttered, "I'm gonna punch that poetry out of his face." But the moment they charged, Echo hit them with a wave of reversed emotion. Izumi's love turned into crushing anxiety. She staggered. Bakugo's pride flipped into insecurity. His hands trembled. For a second, they were both vulnerable. Shaken. Quiet. And then, Izumi closed her eyes. Remembered their first rooftop talk. Their first kiss. That time Bakugo tried to cook and set her microwave on fire. The way he looked at her like she was the most chaotic miracle to ever exist. Her heart pulsed. And she reversed Echo's power. Her emotions exploded outward, pure, raw, honest. Not just love, but resilience, trust, fire. Echo screamed, overwhelmed. His body shook. "What is this?" Izumi stepped forward, pink aura glowing like a freaking anime goddess. "This is real. This is what happens when you stop hiding from feelings." Bakugo, finally snapping out of the effect, grinned and blasted forward with her. They hit Echo at the same time. Boom. After the dust settled, the villain lay unconscious, and the city lights flickered back on. Izumi exhaled, sweat dripping, eyes dimming. Bakugo walked over, grabbed her by the waist, and pulled her into a sudden kiss. Not a dramatic, fiery kiss like you'd expect. But a soft one, warm, steady, real. When they pulled apart, she whispered, "You good?" He smirked. "I'm great. You just saved my heart again, nerd." She leaned against him. "You save mine every day." Then his comm crackled. "Hey, Bakugo, your mic was still on." We all heard that. Kirishima's voice, followed by giggles, and Mineta crying again. Bakugo screamed at the sky. "I'm turning off my comm forever." And Izumi, she just laughed. Because even with all the chaos, villains, trauma, and feelings flying around, She had her quirk. She had her power. She had her idiot hero boyfriend. And somehow, it all felt perfect. Years passed, and life in the world of heroes moved forward. Izumi Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo, now married and both at the top of the hero charts, were more than just a power couple. They were a legendary disaster. Bakugo's reputation as Blast King only grew. He'd mellowed slightly, just a little, thanks to Izumi. Now, when he yelled at civilians, it was more like, "Get out of my way or I'll explode your car," instead of, "I'll blow you into another dimension." Izumi, as Pulse, had become the most unpredictable yet beloved hero in Japan. People loved her for her emotional insight, even though it was like trying to pin down a storm with a piece of paper. She didn't just fight crime, she made people feel hope, courage, and yeah, sometimes a little too much compassion, which meant a lot of villains ended up hugging it out with the police. It was a chaotic existence, but it was their life. Now, though, they were facing the next stage of their partnership. Parenthood. Izumi stared at the test in her hands, her mind racing. "Hey, Katsuki," she called, voice unusually shaky. She never got nervous about missions, villains, or life-or-death situations, but this was different. Bakugo, who was halfway through stuffing his face with a sandwich, glanced up. "What now, nerd? Did you set the microwave on fire again?" Izumi's cheeks flushed. "No, but, I think we're having a baby." The sandwich almost hit the ceiling. Bakugo froze mid-bite. "Wait, what?" Izumi quickly waved her hands. "I mean, I think we are. The test is positive." He dropped the sandwich. "This is not the time for a practical joke, Midoriya. I'm serious, Katsuki," she insisted. "This isn't a prank. I'm pregnant." There was a long pause. Then Bakugo blinked, then blinked again, then, he smiled. Izumi's jaw dropped. "Wait, are you smiling?" "I'm not crying," he snapped. He cleared his throat. "This is big, alright. You're acting like a robot that's overheating," she said, chuckling. Then, finally, Bakugo wrapped his arms around her. "Alright, nerd. This is a disaster I can get behind." For the first time in their chaotic lives, Izumi couldn't help but feel a deep, overwhelming surge of peace. They were in this together. No explosions, no villains, just the two of them, about to bring a new life into the world. Of course, things couldn't stay quiet for long. 2 months later, just when Izumi thought her life was settling into some semblance of normalcy, and trust her, normalcy was a foreign concept to her, the world of heroes got a new challenge. A villain group calling themselves Emotionless showed up, claiming they were going to rid the world of emotional heroes for good. Their leader, a figure clad in a sleek black suit, had an eerie ability to suppress all emotions in a large area. Izumi's quirk was useless against them. The minute they attacked, her heart felt like it was frozen in place, like a fog creeping into her mind. The world felt empty. And so did she. But then Bakugo, being Bakugo, broke through the suppression the only way he knew how: explosions. He blasted through their ranks with enough firepower to turn the street into a crater, while Izumi was left gasping for air, trying to push past the emotional fog. "Don't let these losers make you feel nothing," Bakugo yelled, his voice cutting through the emotional blockade like a sharp knife. "You've always felt everything, and that's what makes you stronger." And just like that, Izumi snapped out of it. She felt it all again. The relief, the love, the pure rush of feeling. And when the villain leader tried to freeze her emotions once more, Izumi smirked. "You think you can suppress this?" Her pink aura erupted around her, waves of passion, confidence, and anger that made the villains buckle under their own weight. Bakugo was right beside her, smashing through the remaining enemies. Together, they wiped the floor with Emotionless. Later that night, back in their apartment, Bakugo lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling while Izumi sat beside him, her hand on her growing belly. "So, how are we gonna explain this to our kid?" she asked, laughing. Bakugo rolled his eyes. "Easy. I'll tell him I saved the day while you sat around being all emotional." "Excuse me," Izumi smirked, poking his chest. "I was the one who saved us. Your explosions are just the cherry on top." Bakugo grinned. All right, you win." But I'm still gonna teach them how to throw the best. Explosions. Sure, Izumi said, chuckling. But I'm teaching them how to read people's feelings first. Yeah, and I'm gonna teach 'em how to punch feelings, too. And just like that, their laughter filled the apartment. Life might be unpredictable, but it was theirs. Chaos, love, parenthood, and too many explosions to count. Izumi Midoriya and Katsuki Bakugo were married heroes, their lives always filled with action and chaos. But nothing could prepare them for the news they were about to receive one quiet morning. Izumi stared at the test in her hands, a mix of emotions bubbling inside her. Katsuki, she called, her voice trembling. I think we're having a baby. Bakugo, who was halfway through his breakfast, froze, his sandwich hovering midair. What? He shouted, his voice loud enough to wake the neighbors. Izumi nervously laughed. I know this is a lot to take in, but I'm pregnant. Bakugo's eyes widened in shock, his mouth opening and closing as if he had forgotten how to speak. Then, in the most Bakugo way possible, he grabbed her by the shoulders and pulled her close, a smirk breaking out across his face. Well, this is gonna be fun. Izumi couldn't help but laugh, the tension in the air dissipating. For a moment, everything felt perfectly normal. And yet, she knew nothing would ever be the same. 2 months later, just when life seemed to settle, a new villain group, Emotionless, appeared, targeting heroes with emotion-based quirks. Their leader, a figure in a sleek black suit, had the ability to suppress emotions in a large radius. Izumi felt it immediately, an icy numbness that made everything feel hollow. Her power, her strength, everything she was, seemed to vanish. Katsuki, she whispered, her voice shaking as she tried to fight the numbness. Bakugo wasn't having it. Don't you dare go quiet on me, Izumi. He yelled, charging at the villains. I'm not letting anyone take you down. He blasted through their ranks, making his way to her side. You think you can suppress her? He sneered. She feels everything, and you're not taking that away. Izumi's emotions surged back with a vengeance. She felt the love for her partner, the fire of her determination, and the sheer joy of living all flood back into her. With a renewed burst of energy, she unleashed her quirk, pushing back the emotional suppression with her overwhelming force of feelings. Get out of our way, she shouted, the villains collapsing under the weight of her emotions. The leader, frozen in her power, screamed in agony as he was overwhelmed by her heart's intensity. Together, they defeated Emotionless, saving the city once again. Back in their apartment, Izumi looked at her growing belly, a smile playing on her lips as Bakugo lay sprawled on the couch, a rare moment of peace between them. You think we're ready for this? Izumi asked, her voice soft. Bakugo turned his head and smirked. Ready for a kid? Of course we are. Besides, who else is gonna show him how to throw explosions? Izumi laughed. Yeah, right. But I'm teaching them how to feel, Katsuki. That's more important than anything. Fine, Bakugo sighed dramatically, rolling his eyes. But I'm teaching him how to fight. Izumi grinned. Deal. And just like that, their world was filled with new purpose, new challenges, and more love than they ever thought possible. Parenthood was on the horizon, but for now, they enjoyed the quiet moments, together, always stronger, always ready to face whatever came next. Months passed, and Izumi's pregnancy progressed smoothly, though her emotional range seemed to grow even stronger. She could feel everything now, joy, fear, anger, sometimes all at once. It was like living in a constant storm of emotions, but with Bakugo by her side, it was manageable. They took it one day at a time, with Bakugo constantly proving that no matter how hard life tried to knock them down, he would always be there to catch her. Hey, you sure you wanna do this? Bakugo asked one evening as they stood outside their house, looking at the UA building in the distance. It was a quiet moment in between missions, and Izumi had been thinking about teaching again, returning to UA to mentor the next generation of heroes. I have to, Izumi replied, her voice steady. I've been hiding behind my quirk long enough. It's time I give back, teach them what it means to control their emotions and use them for good. Bakugo's eyes softened for a moment, a rare look for the usually brash hero. Just don't go too soft on him, alright? Izumi chuckled. You're one to talk. Who's the one always getting mad over small stuff? Shut up, nerd, Bakugo growled, but it lacked its usual bite. A few weeks later, Izumi officially returned to UA as a teacher. She found herself standing in front of a classroom full of eager faces, ready to impart her knowledge to the new generation. You're all here because you have the potential to become heroes, Izumi began, her voice confident, yet soft. But more importantly, you all have something inside you, something that drives you. And I'm here to teach you how to control that. Because heroes are defined by their ability to not just control their powers but their emotions. Her students looked up at her with wide eyes, and for a moment, she felt that same nervousness from when she first entered UA all those years ago. But it quickly faded. She could handle this. She had to handle this. Later that day, she sat in the teacher's lounge, her fingers tapping on her cup of tea as she stared out the window. The quiet hum of the school felt familiar, comforting. Bakugo came in, leaning against the doorframe with that signature smirk on his face. So, how's the first day going, teacher? He teased, taking a seat beside her. Exhausting, Izumi admitted. I'm not used to being in front of a class. But it feels right. Bakugo raised an eyebrow. You're probably the only person I know who can talk about emotions and not make me want to run for the hills. Izumi laughed, her eyes sparkling. I'm a professional, remember. Just as the peaceful moment settled, an alarm blared, signaling an emergency. Without missing a beat, they both stood up, already in their hero gear before they even left the room. A new villain, calling himself Void, appeared that night. His quirk allowed him to drain emotions from anyone in his vicinity, rendering them hollow shells. He had attacked several heroes, leaving them immobilized in a state of despair. Izumi felt the drain the moment she stepped onto the battlefield. Her emotions were ripped away, her thoughts clouded with nothing but emptiness. It was as if she was drowning in a vast void of silence. But then she felt Bakugo's presence, his fiery determination cutting through the emptiness. Don't let this idiot get to you, he said, his voice loud and unwavering. Izumi's heart beat stronger. She focused, digging deep into the well of emotions she had been hiding for so long. She called upon the love she had for him, the strength she had built over the years, and the pure joy she felt in every moment with him. The pink glow around her flared, and with it, her emotions exploded outward in a powerful wave that shattered Void's influence. Bakugo wasted no time, charging forward with a blast that sent the villain flying. You're not getting away that easy. Bakugo yelled as he aimed his explosion at Void, who was already struggling to rise. With a final surge of power, Izumi amplified the emotions in her heart, flooding Void with every feeling she could muster. His body shook, and then he collapsed, drained of his own power. When it was over, Izumi collapsed into Bakugo's arms, still feeling the rush of emotions coursing through her. Her mind was a whirlwind, but she felt alive, more than ever. You're amazing, Izumi, Bakugo murmured, kissing her forehead. Izumi smiled weakly, resting against him. You, too, couldn't have done it without you. They stood together, feeling the weight of their battles, knowing there would be more to come. But for now, they had each other. And that was all they needed. The days after the battle with Void were a blur. UA was back to its routine, but Izumi and Bakugo couldn't shake the lingering effects of their emotional exhaustion. The villains were never far behind, and with every mission, the stakes seemed to get higher. Still, they made time for each other, finding brief moments of peace amidst the chaos. As Izumi sat at her desk in the teacher's lounge, grading papers with a tired sigh, Bakugo leaned against the door, arms crossed. He was already in his hero gear, looking like he was ready to blow something up, as usual. You're still grading papers? Bakugo asked, raising an eyebrow. Shouldn't you be taking it easy? Izumi looked up at him, a tired but affectionate smile on her face. I can't help it. It's part of the job. You know I like to help them improve. Yeah, well, your students are lucky. You've got a heart bigger than your explosions, he said, though there was a hint of sarcasm in his voice. Izumi chuckled. I get it, Bakugo. You're not the touchy-feely type. She leaned back in her chair, stretching. But you're not exactly the emotional type either, so it's kind of funny that I'm teaching them how to control their feelings, and you're out there making explosions the size of a small building. Bakugo grinned, unapologetic. Explosions don't need feelings to work. But I guess it's good to know that the future heroes have someone teaching them how to not be total idiots. Izumi smirked. Hey, I'm just teaching them how to survive. That's something, right? Just then, a loud beep from the control panel interrupted their banter. An alert flashed across the screen. Another villain attack. This time, it was in the city. Izumi immediately shot up from her chair, her fatigue forgotten. Bakugo followed suit, already moving with the practiced speed of a professional. This one's mine, he said, his voice sharp as he prepared to leave. No way, Izumi replied with a grin. You're not going alone. Besides, I'm definitely not sitting this one out. With a mutual nod, they both ran out of the teacher's lounge and into the chaos awaiting them. The villain, Nocturne, was unlike anyone they had faced before. A master of manipulating shadows, he had the power to create and control dark energy, bending it into various forms. His ability to create entire shadow constructs made him a formidable opponent, and his presence turned the city streets into an eerie, dark labyrinth. The streets were eerily quiet as Izumi and Bakugo approached. Nocturne stood in the middle of the road, his silhouette blending with the surrounding shadows, waiting for them. Well, if it isn't the heroes of the hour, Nocturne's voice echoed, a low, eerie hum. Izumi's senses heightened, and she felt the darkness pressing in on her mind, trying to numb her emotions. She could feel it, the emptiness, the same feeling that had nearly overcome her during the battle with Void. But she wasn't going to let that happen again. Bakugo, we've got this, she said, determination flashing in her eyes. Yeah, I don't need you to tell me that, he snapped back, his voice filled with the usual fire. The villains. Shadows twisted and lashed out, but Izumi's pink aura flared as she fought back, pushing through the dark tendrils. She called on every ounce of love, rage, and joy inside her, her emotions flooding the area, battling the darkness. Bakugo, seeing the shift in her, charged forward, launching a massive explosion at Nocturne's shadow constructs, causing them to disintegrate in a burst of fire and light. But Nocturne was quick to recover, his laugh reverberating through the night air. Your emotions are nothing but a weakness. It's a fool's game to feel. Izumi's eyes narrowed, her stance growing more firm. No, it's what makes us human. It's what makes us strong. Bakugo grinned, stepping beside her. She's right, you coward. You wanna fight? Then come at us with everything you've got. Izumi nodded. Together, with a burst of shared energy, they launched themselves at Nocturne, Bakugo's explosions lighting up the shadows and Izumi's emotional force tearing through the darkness. They fought as one, a perfectly synchronized team, drawing on their unbreakable bond. The final blow came when Bakugo landed a massive explosion at the villain's core, shattering the shadow barrier surrounding him. Izumi's quirk surged in, overwhelming Nocturne with every emotion she had. Love for her family, hope for the future, the burning desire to protect those she cared about. With nowhere to hide, the villain crumbled. Later that night, Izumi sat on the roof of their apartment building, watching the stars. The cool breeze tugged at her hair, and for the first time in a while, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. Bakugo joined her moments later, sitting down beside her with a grunt. They didn't speak right away, content to simply be in each other's presence. Izumi turned to him, her smile soft. You know, I think we make a pretty good team. Bakugo smirked, his eyes flicking to her. Told you so. Izumi rolled her eyes, but she couldn't help but laugh. You're impossible. He chuckled. You love it. I do, she admitted, her voice quiet but full of warmth. And for the first time in a long while, she realized that maybe, just maybe, they had everything they needed to face whatever came next. Together, Izumi and Bakugo had just settled back into the calm they'd worked so hard to build. Their life, though still full of danger, had been balanced by moments of peace and joy. The pregnancy was progressing well, and both of them were looking forward to the future, becoming parents, starting a family, and sharing their world with a little one. But the calm was shattered one fateful evening. They had just returned from a small mission, laughing over something Bakugo had said, when they were met with the horrifying sight of their apartment door hanging ajar. Izumi's heart skipped a beat, and she immediately felt that nagging sense of dread creeping up her spine. Bakugo noticed too. "Stay back, Izumi," he muttered, his voice low, as his hand gripped the handle. He swung the door open, ready for a fight, but what they found was a nightmare. The room was dark, and everything was still. In the center of the living room, the crib they had set up for their baby was overturned. The air was heavy with a sinister presence. "No," Izumi whispered, feeling the ground beneath her feet give way as she rushed forward, her heart hammering in her chest. Bakugo's face twisted into a snarl, his eyes scanning the room. "Where is it?" he growled, his voice crackling with anger. Izumi's gaze swept the room, finally landing on the blood-soaked floor beside the crib. There, in the corner, was a note. She dropped to her knees, her hands shaking as she picked up the piece of paper. It was written in sharp, cruel handwriting. "Emotions make you weak. I've taken your heart. You'll never be the same again." Her breath hitched in her throat. Her baby, their baby, was gone. Bakugo stood still for a moment, his face devoid of all expression, his fists trembling with rage. But when he spoke, his voice was dangerously quiet. "Who did this?" Izumi's mind was spinning. "Nocturne, he must have done this," she whispered, barely able to get the words out. The villain's words haunted her. Emotions make you weak. He had taken what she loved most to destroy her. But something inside Izumi snapped. The grief, the anger, the emptiness that had been forced upon her, it was too much. She had fought for so long to protect everyone, to protect her family, and now, someone had taken it all away. "I'm going after him," Izumi said, her voice colder than Bakugo had ever heard it. "Wait, Izumi," Bakugo said, grabbing her arm. His voice was filled with concern, but also something deeper. "We need to think this through." "No," she screamed, her eyes burning with rage and tears. "He took my baby. I will make him pay. I will make them all pay." Bakugo's grip tightened. He knew how much this would destroy her if she let it consume her. But the look in her eyes, it wasn't just grief anymore. It was something darker, something that could break anyone who stood in her way. "Izumi," he said softly, trying to calm her. "You don't have to do this alone. I'm with you. But if you lose yourself to this rage, you won't just lose your baby. You'll lose yourself." Izumi's eyes flickered for a moment, and she turned to look at him. "I'm already lost, Katsuki." Before he could say anything else, Izumi wrenched herself from his grip, her hands trembling as she wiped her eyes. She wasn't listening anymore. The pain was unbearable, and she couldn't think clearly, only that she needed revenge, needed to make those who took her baby pay. Bakugo watched her go, helplessness seizing his chest. He couldn't stop her, but he wasn't going to let her go alone, either. Izumi hunted Nocturne down, her quirk raging inside her like a storm. She could feel the deep hurt, the anger, and the devastating loss in every pulse of emotion. The world around her was nothing but a haze of rage, and her power was magnified to its limits. But when she finally found him, standing alone in an abandoned warehouse, the sight of his smug expression only fueled the fire inside her. "So, you're the one who wants to destroy me." Izumi's voice echoed through the darkness, colder than anything Nocturne had ever felt. Nocturne turned slowly, his shadowy tendrils shifting around him like dark serpents. "I didn't want to destroy you, Izumi Midoriya," he said, his voice almost mocking. "I wanted to show you the truth. Emotions are weakness. You couldn't protect what you loved because you're weak." Izumi's anger flared. "I'm not weak," she shouted. "I'll show you what true strength is." With that, she unleashed her full emotional force, pouring everything she had, her grief, her rage, her love for Bakugo, her pain over the loss of her child, into the attack. The warehouse cracked and shook under the force of her emotions. The very air seemed to tremble with the intensity of what she was feeling. Nocturne's eyes widened, and for the first time, he seemed to falter. "You're out of control," he hissed. "Your emotions will destroy you." But Izumi wasn't listening. She wasn't thinking about control. She didn't care. She had lost too much, and she would destroy everything in her path to get it back. Bakugo arrived just as the battle reached its peak, his explosions lighting up the sky. He rushed in, seeing Izumi's uncontrollable power tearing through the villain's defenses. "Izumi, stop," Bakugo shouted, rushing to her side. His voice cut through the storm of emotions she was unleashing. "This isn't you. For a brief moment, her emotions faltered, just a crack in the storm. But Nocturne took advantage, his shadows lashing out toward them. Bakugo fought back, his explosions pushing the dark energy away, but Izumi's focus was unwavering. "I'll destroy him. I'll destroy all of them," Izumi muttered, her voice distant and hollow. Bakugo's heart clenched. This wasn't the woman he loved. This wasn't the Izumi who had once dreamed of a peaceful life, of raising a family. She had become something else, something vengeful, lost in her pain. "Izumi, listen to me," Bakugo shouted, grabbing her shoulders. "If you go down this path, you'll lose everything, your heart, your soul, you'll become the very thing that took our baby away from us. Please, don't let them win." For a long moment, Izumi stood frozen, her heart pounding as the rage inside her fought against the love she still had for Bakugo. The storm inside her raged, but deep down, she knew he was right. With one final, painful scream, she released all of her power, her emotions crashing into Nocturne in a blinding wave. The villain crumbled, his shadowy form dissipating under the onslaught. But as the dust settled, Izumi collapsed into Bakugo's arms, her body shaking with exhaustion. Her emotions had taken everything from her. But she hadn't lost herself. "I'll make sure this never happens again," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'll never let anyone take away what matters to me again." Bakugo held her close, his own emotions a tangled mess of relief and sadness. "I won't let you, Izumi. We'll get through this, together." And as the night fell, they knew the path ahead would be hard. But as long as they had each other, they would fight for what they loved, no matter the cost. Izumi's hands trembled as she leaned against Bakugo, her chest rising and falling with each labored breath. The battle was over, Nocturne was gone, but the price had been heavy. They had both fought so hard, yet the scars of what they had lost lingered like a dark shadow, casting a pall over everything. For the first time in what felt like forever, Izumi allowed herself to feel the weight of her grief. The loss of her baby, the one thing that had given her hope for a better future, had shattered something inside her. The rage, the need for vengeance, it had consumed her, and in the process, it nearly destroyed her. Bakugo, ever the fiery protector, stood by her, his arm wrapped tightly around her waist as they made their way back to the city. The weight of the evening's events pressed down on them both, but there was an undeniable silence between them, the kind that came with understanding. They didn't need words to communicate this time. They both knew the cost of the battle. The journey home was long and quiet, the streets empty except for the occasional flicker of a streetlight. As they reached their apartment, the familiar sight of their door only reminded Izumi of the absence inside. There was no crib waiting for them, no soft lullabies to drift through the halls. Just emptiness. Bakugo, ever the stoic one, was the first to break the silence. "We'll rebuild, Izumi. I swear on my life, we'll rebuild what we lost." Izumi nodded, but it was a hollow gesture. The truth was, she didn't know how to rebuild. She didn't know how to move forward after losing something so precious. The world outside felt too cold, too empty, and nothing seemed to matter anymore. Not the hero work, not the missions, not even the promises of a better tomorrow. "I don't know if I can do this, Katsuki," she whispered, her voice raw, breaking under the weight of her emotions. "I don't know if I can be the person I was before." "You don't have to be that person," Bakugo said firmly, his voice steady, a hint of gentleness that only she could hear. "You're already stronger than anyone I know. This doesn't define you, Izumi. You're not just a victim of what happened, you're someone who survived the worst and kept fighting. And you'll keep fighting." Izumi closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "But at what cost? Every day I feel this emptiness. This hole that nothing can fill." Bakugo's hand cupped her chin, lifting her face so their eyes met. His gaze was intense, as if trying to anchor her, to keep her grounded in the reality they still shared. "You're not alone, Izumi. I'm here, always. You're my heart, you know that. And I won't let this thing, whatever it is, destroy you." She bit her lip, trying to hold back the sobs threatening to escape. She wanted to scream, to break down and let the world know just how broken she felt, but instead, she stayed silent, letting the comfort of his presence fill the space between them. Bakugo brushed a stray lock of hair from her face, his voice soft but full of conviction. We'll face whatever comes next together. We'll grieve, we'll heal, and we'll fight like hell. That's what we do. For the first time in days, Izumi felt the tightness in her chest loosen, just a little. Maybe there was hope after all. Maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to keep going. The weeks that followed were filled with small steps toward recovery. Izumi didn't rush back into hero work right away, and neither did Bakugo. They both needed time, space to grieve, and most importantly, to heal. They spent their days together, slowly finding new ways to rebuild their lives. The apartment that once felt empty now had the quiet comfort of shared moments, no longer just the space where they had lost everything, but a home where they would begin again. Bakugo's fiery nature had softened a little in the weeks that followed, his sharp edges worn down by the weight of their loss, but still burning with the same protective intensity. And Izumi, though still haunted by what they had been through, found herself opening up more, allowing herself to feel the small joys again, the way Bakugo's hand would find hers, the quiet mornings spent together, the moments of laughter in between the tears. One night, while they were sitting on the balcony, watching the stars as they had so many times before, Izumi's hand brushed over her stomach, her fingers tracing the faint scars of a love lost. She still felt the emptiness, but it wasn't as suffocating as it once was. You know, she began softly, her voice quiet in the night air, I can't bring back what we lost. But maybe we can create something new. Something that carries the love we had. Bakugo, who had been staring into the distance, turned to look at her. His expression was unreadable for a moment, but then he nodded slowly. We'll make sure they're remembered. And we'll make sure they're proud of us. We'll create a future that makes up for the one that was taken from us. Izumi looked up at the stars, a faint smile tugging at her lips. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. The grief would never fully fade, but the strength she had found within herself, the love that still remained, those things could not be taken away. They would move forward, together. And one day, maybe they would find a way to fill the space in their hearts once more. But for now, they would take it one step at a time, rebuilding their lives, hand in hand. The end of one chapter was only the beginning of another. Izumi and Bakugo's life slowly began to regain a sense of normalcy. It was never going to be the same as before, but they were learning to navigate their grief and their newfound strength together. Every day was a reminder of the pain they had endured, but it was also a reminder of the resilience they had built along the way. Izumi found solace in the small things, a morning coffee shared in silence, the quiet moments when they could just exist in each other's company, unburdened by the weight of the world. The absence of their child was always present, but Bakugo's unwavering presence and his constant support were the anchor she needed. Despite their efforts to heal, the world around them never stopped. The heroes were still fighting villains, missions still called for their attention, and the darkness they had faced never seemed far behind. But Izumi had found a new sense of purpose in helping others, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to use her power to prevent others from experiencing the same loss. She knew now, more than ever, how fragile life could be. One afternoon, as they were walking through the city, Bakugo turned to her, his face unusually serious. Izumi, he began, his tone deep and steady, I've been thinking about the future. About what we can do with all this power we have. Izumi looked up at him, sensing the shift in his words. What do you mean? I mean, we've got a chance to make things right. Not just for us, but for everyone, he said, his voice softer now. I know we've both been through hell, but maybe we can turn that pain into something bigger. Something that will make sure no one else has to go through what we did. Izumi's heart tightened. She had always known Bakugo was driven, but this was different. This was something more than just fighting villains. It was about shaping the world, about using their pain and power to protect others. I think that's what I've been trying to do, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I don't want our loss to be in vain. I want to make sure no one else has to go through what we did. If we can stop that from happening, maybe we can finally heal. Bakugo nodded, a determined look on his face. Then let's do it. We'll fight, we'll protect, and we'll make sure this world becomes a place where people don't have to lose everything. Not like we did. Izumi smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, she could see the path forward. It wouldn't be easy. It might never be easy. But it was theirs to walk, together. The days turned into weeks, and soon the months began to blur together as Izumi and Bakugo threw themselves into their work. Their partnership with the other heroes had become stronger, their bond unbreakable. They had found new ways to fight, to work together, to use their powers not just for victory, but for healing. And with each battle, each mission, they grew stronger, both individually and as a couple. Yet, in the back of their minds, the shadow of their loss never completely disappeared. It lived in the quiet moments, the moments when Izumi would wake up in the middle of the night, reaching for an empty cradle, or when Bakugo would catch a glimpse of a child in the crowd and his heart would ache for what they could have had. But they no longer let that shadow consume them. They used it to fuel their determination, to fight harder, to protect more fiercely. They had each other, and that was enough. One evening, after a particularly grueling mission, they returned to their apartment, both exhausted but content. Bakugo dropped onto the couch, and Izumi collapsed beside him, her head resting against his shoulder. "Hey," Izumi whispered, a tired but genuine smile on her face, "I think we're doing okay. We're making it." Bakugo looked down at her, his usual tough exterior softened by the warmth between them. "Yeah, we are," he agreed. "But don't get too comfortable, Izumi. We've still got a lot of work to do." Izumi chuckled, nudging him playfully with her elbow. "Always the hard ass." Bakugo smirked, his hand finding hers. "You love it." And for the first time in a long while, Izumi truly believed that everything would be all right. Their journey had been filled with unimaginable pain, but it had also been filled with growth, strength, and love. And with that, they could face whatever came next. Together. As the night stretched on, Izumi and Bakugo shared a quiet moment, the weight of their shared past fading just enough to allow them a taste of the future. A future they would build together, one step at a time. The seasons shifted, and with each passing day, Izumi and Bakugo's lives grew more intertwined. They found themselves not just as partners in battle, but as pillars of support for each other in the quiet moments of everyday life. Their bond had transformed, growing stronger through the shared struggles, and though the pain of their loss would never completely vanish, it became a part of their journey rather than a constant weight on their shoulders. One chilly evening, as Izumi and Bakugo sat in the park, watching the sunset, their thoughts were far from the usual weight of villain attacks or hero duties. For once, the world seemed at peace. The sounds of children laughing in the distance, the rustle of leaves in the wind, all felt like a distant echo compared to the tumultuous journey they had endured. Izumi let out a deep sigh, her breath visible in the cool air. "You know, I always thought I would be a hero for the world, but I think now, it's about being a hero for the people I love, too." Bakugo turned to her, his expression softer than usual. "You've always been a hero, Izumi. But now, you've got a reason. Not just to protect others, but to protect yourself. To protect us." Izumi smiled at him, a warmth spreading in her chest. "Yeah, I guess I never realized how important that was. To protect the people who matter most, not just the ones we're fighting for." Bakugo grunted, his hand finding hers again. "Don't get too soft on me, you know. I'm not doing this for the sentimental stuff. But I will make sure we have a future. Together." Izumi chuckled, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I wouldn't want it any other way." They sat there for a while longer, just watching the world move on without them. It was a rare moment of peace, and for once, neither of them felt the urgency to rush back into action. They could just be. But, as always, peace was fleeting. The next morning, the phone rang, urgent, demanding. Izumi answered, her voice still groggy from sleep. "Hello, Izumi, it's Kirishima," came the voice of their teammate, panic in his tone. "We've got a situation. A villain has appeared, and it's bad. You need to get here, fast." Izumi's heart skipped a beat. She shot up, already scrambling for her hero suit. "We're on our way." Bakugo was already halfway into his gear when she turned to him. "Let's go. This doesn't sound like a drill." They made their way to the scene, their minds immediately shifting into professional mode. When they arrived, they were greeted by the sight of destruction. Buildings had been torn apart, and civilians were scattered, trying to get to safety. But there was one thing that caught Izumi's eye, a familiar symbol spray-painted on the side of a building. It was the mark of Nocturne's organization. Not again, Izumi muttered under her breath, her heart racing. This wasn't just any villain, it was the remnants of the group that had once been led by Nocturne. The group that had caused them so much pain. Bakugo's eyes narrowed. That bastard never knew when to quit. Izumi clenched her fists, her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't just angry. She wasn't just frustrated. This was personal. The one thing she had wanted more than anything was to make sure that Nocturne's influence was wiped out from the world forever. Now it seemed like that fight was far from over. They joined the other heroes on the front lines, taking down lesser villains and protecting the citizens in the area. But they both knew that the real fight was yet to come. Whoever was leading this attack had to be stopped, and quickly. As they fought through the chaos, Izumi's mind raced. Could it be someone who had escaped Nocturne's inner circle? Or was it someone new entirely, using the remnants of the villain group as a cover for their own agenda? Hours passed, and the dust began to settle. It wasn't until Izumi spotted a lone figure standing atop a collapsed building that she realized what was happening. The villain responsible for this attack was not someone she had expected to see, someone from her past. "Izumi," Bakugo called out, his voice tense. "You okay?" Izumi's heart skipped a beat. Her worst fear had just been confirmed. Standing on that building, looking down at them with a cruel grin, was none other than a familiar face, Fumiko, a former member of their team who had been thought to be dead. Fumiko had once been an ally, a dear friend who had fought beside them, but after Nocturne's influence had twisted her, she had betrayed them. And now, here she was, standing as the mastermind behind the attack. "You," Izumi whispered, her voice shaking with a mixture of disbelief and anger. Fumiko's grin widened, her eyes glinting with malice. "Did you think you could get rid of all of us? Nocturne's legacy doesn't die that easily, Izumi. And now, it's your turn to face the consequences." Izumi felt a surge of emotion, rage, fear, and betrayal, all coursing through her in a flood. She had trusted Fumiko once. But now, Fumiko was the enemy. Bakugo stepped forward, his voice low and threatening. "Get ready, Fumiko. This time, there's no escaping." Izumi's hands trembled as she activated her quirk. But this time, it wasn't just to manipulate emotions for peace. This time, it was to rip through the veil of deceit Fumiko had built around herself. She could feel her power swelling, ready to explode with the force of everything she had lost. And this time, she wouldn't hold back. The battle began anew, and as the flames of revenge burned inside her, Izumi knew one thing for sure: this time, there would be no second chances. Izumi's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped forward, her emotions surging like a tidal wave. The sight of Fumiko standing there, a twisted grin on her face, ignited a fire in Izumi that she hadn't felt in a long time. Nocturne's legacy wasn't just a group, it was a scar, a reminder of everything she had lost. And now, Fumiko was the last link to that nightmare. Her eyes glowed with the intensity of her power, her quirk pulsing through her, manipulating the emotions of everyone around her. But this time, there was no hesitation, no mercy. She wasn't just shifting moods, she was tearing through Fumiko's false bravado, ripping apart the walls Fumiko had built around herself. Every ounce of betrayal, anger, and grief that Izumi had buried deep within her now surged to the surface. "You think you can control everything, Fumiko?" Izumi shouted, her voice raw with emotion. "You think you can play with people's lives like it's some sick game? You're wrong. I'm done being the victim. I'm done being weak." Fumiko's grin faltered for a moment, her eyes narrowing as she felt the surge of Izumi's quirk. "You think your power can change anything? You're nothing like you were before, Izumi. You're broken. You're just like me." Izumi's gaze hardened. "I'm nothing like you. I've learned from the pain. I've learned how to fight with everything I have. And that's what's going to destroy you." Bakugo's voice cut through the tension, his usual bravado making its return. "Get down here, Fumiko. You don't stand a chance." Izumi could feel his anger fueling her own resolve. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about protecting the world they had fought for, the future they had worked so hard to rebuild. Fumiko's betrayal had taken so much from them already. This time, it would end. Fumiko's eyes flashed with fury, and she leapt from the building, her body twisting midair as she landed with an explosion of force. The ground cracked beneath her feet as she straightened, revealing the dark aura of power she had cultivated in her absence. Her quirk had been amplified, twisted just as her soul had been, making her more dangerous than ever. "You're both so naive," Fumiko sneered, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you can stop me? No one ever stops me." Izumi's hand clenched into a fist as she felt her power surge again. She reached into Fumiko's heart, felt the anger and fear lurking there, and twisted it, just enough to make Fumiko hesitate. It wasn't enough to control her, but it was enough to disrupt her focus. For just a moment, Fumiko's guard was down. That was all Izumi needed. With a fierce cry, Izumi charged, Bakugo right behind her, his explosive energy crackling as he powered through the debris. They were a perfect team, and this time, they weren't holding back. Bakugo's blasts hit Fumiko first, forcing her to stagger backward, her concentration breaking as the explosion rocked her. Izumi's eyes locked onto Fumiko, and she pushed all her power forward. With a single command, she flooded Fumiko's mind with overwhelming feelings of fear and doubt, just long enough to make her second-guess every move. But Fumiko fought back, shaking off the influence with sheer willpower, her quirk flaring to life. "You think this will stop me?" Fumiko hissed. "I've seen you both broken before. I know your weaknesses. I can destroy you just like I did before." But Izumi's resolve only hardened. The memory of their lost child, the pain, the betrayal, it was all feeding her now, transforming into an unshakable force. "You don't know me anymore, Fumiko. I'm not the same girl I was when you betrayed me." She lunged, her quirk pushing Fumiko's emotions to a breaking point, forcing her to relive her darkest moments, the guilt, the fear, the loss she had buried deep within herself. Fumiko's face twisted in agony as the emotions overwhelmed her. "You're just a puppet," Fumiko screamed, trying to resist, but Izumi's grip on her mind was too strong now. "You're nothing but someone who bends others to your will." Bakugo, seeing the opening, rushed forward with a roar. "Enough talking." His explosion sent a shockwave through the air as he landed a powerful blow directly to Fumiko's chest, knocking her back. Izumi took a step forward, her voice firm and unwavering. "No, I'm someone who chooses to fight for the people I love. Someone who will never let you control me again." Fumiko's eyes were wide with disbelief, but it was too late. She had underestimated the bond between Izumi and Bakugo. She had underestimated Izumi's growth. As Fumiko stumbled backward, defeated, Izumi stepped forward, her hand outstretched, her quirk making Fumiko feel every ounce of her regret, every moment of weakness. "Your reign ends here," Izumi declared coldly. With a final, decisive push, Izumi's power flooded through Fumiko, forcing her to the ground, completely drained. The villain who had once been a close friend, someone Izumi had trusted, now lay crumpled and defeated at her feet. The storm inside Izumi was over. Bakugo stood beside her, his expression unreadable but his hand steady on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. Izumi's breath was heavy, her emotions still raw. "No, we did it. Together." The fight was over. For now, at least. They had won. But as the dust settled and the heroes began to clean up, Izumi knew there would always be more battles. The world wasn't done testing them. But she also knew that, no matter what, she and Bakugo would face it side by side, stronger than before. And they would never let their past define their future. And, as the dust from the battle settled, the weight of their victory started to settle in. Izumi stood there for a moment, breathing heavily, her gaze locked on the fallen form of Fumiko. She had done it, she had finally avenged their lost child, finally rid herself of the ghost of Nocturne's betrayal. But the victory didn't feel as sweet as she had imagined. There was still a hole in her heart, a void that no amount of revenge could fill. Bakugo, noticing the shift in her expression, stepped closer, his usual brashness softened by a rare moment of understanding. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quieter than usual. Izumi didn't respond right away. Her eyes were distant, as though she were searching for something that wasn't there. Finally, she turned to him, her gaze steady. I'm trying to be, but it's still hard, you know." Bakugo nodded, his expression shifting to something more genuine, more vulnerable. I get it. You've been through hell, and now, you're just trying to make sense of it all. But you're stronger than you think. We've been through a lot, but we're still here. Izumi smiled faintly. Yeah, we are. And I couldn't have done it without you. Bakugo scoffed, though there was no bite to it. Of course you couldn't. I'm the best there is. But you're no slouch yourself, you know. Izumi laughed, the sound soft and light, though it held a bit of sadness. Still, I don't know if I'll ever be completely okay with what happened. Losing her. I don't think I'll ever stop hurting from that. Bakugo's expression softened even further. You don't have to be okay with it. I don't expect you to. We'll keep moving forward, step by step. And if you need to grieve, we can do that together. Her heart ached at his words. She had spent so long fighting and pushing herself, trying to outrun the pain. But in this moment, standing beside him, she realized she didn't have to do it alone. They had built something unshakable, a foundation that could withstand even the most brutal storms. Izumi nodded, taking a deep breath. Thanks, Bakugo, for everything. Bakugo just gave a grunt of acknowledgement. Don't mention it. As the team finished securing the area, Izumi's thoughts drifted to the future. Nocturne was gone, Fumiko was defeated, but there would always be more threats to face. The world didn't stop just because they had won one battle. But for the first time in a long while, Izumi felt like maybe, just maybe, they could face whatever came next, together. Weeks passed, and the days started to blend together in a rhythm that was both comforting and unsettling. The city had started to rebuild, the memories of the chaos fading into the background as life returned to normal. Izumi and Bakugo continued their work as heroes, but their relationship had shifted into something deeper. They weren't just partners, they were each other's anchor, each other's constant. One evening, after a long day of training, they found themselves on the rooftop of their apartment building. The stars above were bright, the cool breeze of the night sky filling the silence between them. I never thought I'd make it this far, Izumi said quietly, her eyes tracing the constellations above. I thought I was done after everything that happened. Bakugo, who had been staring out at the city below, turned to her. You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Izumi. You've always been a fighter. I've seen it. You've been through the worst and still kept going. Izumi's lips curled into a small smile. I think I just didn't know what I was fighting for, until recently. Bakugo raised an eyebrow, a half smirk on his face. And now, Izumi's smile grew as she turned to look at him, her eyes filled with something that wasn't just gratitude, it was something more. Now, I know I'm fighting for something worth protecting. For us. Bakugo's smirk softened into something more genuine, though still tough. I guess that makes two of us. They stood there in silence for a moment, the weight of the words hanging in the air. Then, Bakugo broke it, his usual bluntness returning. All right, enough of the emotional crap. I'm starving. Let's go get something to eat. Izumi laughed, the sound light and carefree. I'm with you on that one. Let's go. As they left the rooftop and headed down to the city streets, the future didn't seem as daunting. The battles they had fought had shaped them into who they were, but it was the bond they had formed, the love they had found in the midst of their chaos, that would carry them through whatever came next. No matter what the world threw at them, Izumi and Bakugo knew one thing for sure, they would face it together. And that was all they needed. Months passed, and life, in its unpredictable way, continued. The chaos of the past was still a fresh scar on Izumi's heart, but it had started to heal in its own time. She and Bakugo were stronger now, their bond unbreakable. They had become a force to be reckoned with, both as heroes and as partners. Yet, something still lingered at the edges of Izumi's thoughts, a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite finished. It was a late evening when it finally happened. Izumi and Bakugo had just returned from a mission, their exhaustion heavy in the air as they walked back to their apartment. The city was quiet, the hum of traffic and the occasional shout of a vendor the only sound in the cool night. They reached the door, and as Bakugo fumbled for his keys, Izumi's eyes caught a strange shadow on the horizon, something out of place, something familiar yet distant. Bakugo, she started, her voice serious. He paused, turning to face her, the playful look on his face quickly replaced with a more cautious one. What is it? Izumi's gaze stayed fixed on the shadow, her heart skipping a beat. Do you feel that? It's like a surge of power, but different. It doesn't feel right. Bakugo followed her gaze, narrowing his eyes. I don't like it. We should check it out. Stay alert. They moved quickly, stepping into the night with their senses on high alert. The air had grown heavier, thicker, as if the very atmosphere was charged with a dark energy. Izumi's instincts screamed at her to prepare for whatever was coming. As they moved through the quiet streets, the power grew stronger. The shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, flickering in the corners of her vision. Then, they heard it, the unmistakable sound of laughter, cruel and mocking, echoing through the empty streets. Are you really going to let the past go so easily? A voice rang out, deep and chilling. It sent a shiver down Izumi's spine. The figure emerged from the shadows, and Izumi's blood ran cold. Standing before them was a familiar face, one she had hoped never to see again, Nocturne, or rather, a dark, twisted version of him. His eyes gleamed with malevolent power, and a twisted smile stretched across his face. Izumi's heart skipped a beat. You're supposed to be gone. Nocturne chuckled darkly. Did you really think I would just let you win so easily, Izumi? I may have been taken down, but that doesn't mean I've been completely erased. Bakugo stepped forward, his fists clenched. So, you're back, huh? Let's see if you've learned anything from last time. Nocturne's eyes gleamed with malice as he raised his hand, dark energy crackling between his fingers. This time, I'm not alone. And I have something even better than before. Izumi's blood ran cold as the ground trembled beneath their feet. Shadows twisted around Nocturne, and from them emerged a figure she thought she'd never see again. The twisted remains of Fumiko, her body now infused with dark energy, her eyes glowing with hatred. I won't let you do this, Izumi whispered, taking a step back, her emotions fluctuating as her power began to rise. You took everything from me once. I won't let you do it again. Nocturne smirked. You think you can stop me? You've already failed once. What makes you think you can win now? Fumiko, her form distorted and corrupted, sneered at Izumi. You'll never be free of me, Izumi. You'll always carry the weight of the past. You'll never escape the pain. Izumi's heart clenched, but something in her changed. The anger that had once been a consuming force now became a controlled flame, burning brighter and hotter. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for the life she had built, the future she had earned, and for everyone who had stood by her side. Bakugo stood next to her, his fiery determination unyielding. We're not giving up. Not now, not ever. Nocturne's smirk faltered. So you think you can stop me? With your emotions and your petty strength. You're nothing compared to the power I have now. Izumi's eyes narrowed, her voice cold. We'll see about that. Without another word, she reached into the core of Nocturne's emotions, twisting his deepest fears and doubts. She forced him to relive his darkest memories, the loss, the failures, the moments where he had been weak. The pain she felt was immense, but it was nothing compared to the pain Nocturne had caused. Bakugo was the first to strike, his explosion reverberating through the street with a force that shook the ground beneath them. He charged forward, not giving Nocturne or Fumiko a chance to react, his raw power slamming into Nocturne's barrier. Izumi, feeling the surge of emotion and power inside her, let loose. She wrapped her quirk around Fumiko's corrupted heart, digging deep into the sorrow and regret that still lingered there. Fumiko's eyes widened, her body trembling as Izumi's power suffocated her. For the first time, she wasn't in control. The guilt, the pain, everything that Fumiko had buried inside her, erupted like a volcano. The battle raged on, but this time, Izumi's resolve was stronger than ever. Nocturne and Fumiko were not the same threats they had been before. They were broken, their power not enough to withstand the bond between Izumi and Bakugo. Izumi's eyes locked onto Fumiko's, and with a final push, she forced the dark energy out, severing the twisted connection Fumiko had with Nocturne. No more, Izumi whispered, her voice a command. Fumiko's form shattered, the darkness dissipating like smoke in the wind. Nocturne's laughter died in his throat as his power faltered, his connection to Fumiko now severed. He stumbled, his face twisted in shock and disbelief. You think you've won? He spat, but his voice was weak, shaky. Izumi took a step forward, her eyes cold and unyielding. I've already won. You're nothing. With one final push of her power, she overwhelmed Nocturne, and the dark energy that had once consumed him evaporated into nothingness. Bakugo walked up to her, his expression softening ever so slightly as he placed a hand on her shoulder. You did it. It's over. Izumi breathed out, her power slowly fading. The battle had been brutal, but in the end, they had triumphed. I'm not sure it'll ever really be over, Izumi whispered, but for now, this is enough. As the night sky returned to its calm, peaceful state, Izumi and Bakugo stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. They had faced the darkness together, and they would continue to do so, no matter what the future held. Days turned into weeks, and Izumi and Bakugo continued to work tirelessly as heroes. But no matter how many villains they defeated, no matter how many threats they faced, there was a lingering feeling in the air, an unease that wouldn't go away. Izumi couldn't shake the feeling that there was more at play than just Nocturne and Fumiko. One evening, as they were recovering from yet another mission, Izumi found herself staring out of their apartment window, lost in thought. The city below was peaceful, the lights twinkling like stars. But her mind was far from calm. Bakugo noticed her silence and walked up behind her, resting a hand on her shoulder. What's on your mind? She hesitated for a moment before speaking, her voice soft. I keep thinking, maybe Nocturne wasn't the only one behind everything. It feels like there's someone else pulling the strings. Bakugo frowned, his usual fiery demeanor momentarily replaced by concern. You think there's another threat? Izumi nodded slowly, her gaze still fixed on the horizon. It's just a feeling, but I've been sensing something. It's like there's a bigger plan, something even darker lurking in the shadows. Bakugo's jaw tightened. Then we'll find it, together. If there's something else out there, we'll take it down. Izumi turned to face him, her eyes filled with determination. I know we will, but we have to be ready for whatever it is. This time, we won't be caught off guard. Before Bakugo could respond, the door to their apartment suddenly slammed open, and a familiar figure entered. Kirishima, his usual cheerful grin plastered on his face, looked a bit more serious than usual. Izumi, Bakugo, he said, his tone uncharacteristically grave. You might want to see this. Izumi and Bakugo exchanged a glance before following him into the living room. Kirishima pulled up a news broadcast on the TV, and what they saw made Izumi's blood run cold. A shadowy figure stood at the center of the screen, their face obscured by a mask. The figure was surrounded by chaotic energy, and their voice, distorted and chilling, echoed through the broadcast. Heroes of this world, your time is running out, the figure's voice crackled. I've been watching, waiting, and now the real game begins. Prepare yourselves for a force you cannot defeat. The broadcast cut out, leaving only silence in its wake. Izumi's heart pounded in her chest. Who is that? Kirishima shook his head. No idea, but that wasn't a threat, that was a declaration of war. Bakugo clenched his fists, his usual cocky expression hardening into something darker. This isn't just some random villain. Whoever that is, they're powerful. And they want us to know they're coming. Izumi's mind raced. She had been right, there was something bigger out there, and it wasn't going to wait. This wasn't just about revenge or personal grudges. This was something far more dangerous, something that could shake the very foundations of their world. We need to find out who they are, fast, Izumi said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. Whatever this is, it's not going to end well if we don't stop it now. Bakugo nodded. I'm with you. Let's get to work. Over the next few days, Izumi, Bakugo, and their team worked around the clock, investigating every lead, tracing every signal, and trying to uncover the identity of the mysterious figure. The more they dug, the more they realized how deep the conspiracy ran. The masked figure had ties to an underground organization, one that had been operating for years, quietly gathering power and influence. The organization had been manipulating events from the shadows, and they had finally decided to reveal themselves. Izumi couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. This felt like it was all happening again, like the same twisted cycle was repeating itself. But this time, she wouldn't make the same mistake. She wasn't alone, and she wouldn't let anyone tear apart her world again. As they closed in on their target, the team discovered something even more disturbing: the masked figure was not working alone. They had allies, powerful allies, each with their own unique abilities. These weren't just regular villains, they were an army, and they were coming for everything Izumi held dear. One night, as the team was discussing their next move, Izumi's phone rang. It was a private number, but she didn't hesitate to answer. Izumi Midoriya, the voice on the other end said, low and sinister. You're playing a dangerous game. But know this: everything you've fought for, everything you've built, will be destroyed. You've made a powerful enemy. Izumi's heart skipped a beat. The voice was unmistakable, it was the same distorted voice from the broadcast. Who are you? Izumi demanded, her voice sharp. The voice laughed, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. You'll find out soon enough. But by then, it will be too late. The call ended abruptly, leaving only silence. Bakugo, who had been listening in the background, stormed forward, his fists clenched. We're not backing down. Whoever this is, they've picked the wrong fight. Izumi nodded, a fire igniting within her. I won't let them win. No matter what it takes. The team gathered their resources, preparing for the battle of their lives. The true enemy had revealed themselves, and the time for hiding was over. Izumi and Bakugo stood side by side, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. The world was about to be tested, and this time, it would be their turn to decide how the story ended. And Izumi was determined: this time, she wouldn't let anyone take away the future she had fought so hard to build. The days that followed were filled with tension. Izumi and Bakugo, along with their team, moved like shadows, tracking every lead, preparing for the inevitable clash. Every time they thought they were one step ahead, the masked figure and their army seemed to be 2 steps ahead, always out of reach, always elusive. Late one night, as Izumi sat at a desk, poring over the information they had gathered, her mind was heavy with uncertainty. The masked figure's threat echoed in her mind, and no matter how hard she tried to shake it off, the feeling that something monumental was about to happen gnawed at her. Bakugo walked in, his usual confident swagger replaced by a rare moment of uncertainty. Izumi, we need to talk. She looked up at him, his expression serious. What's going on? I've been thinking, he began, his tone grave. We've been focusing on the masked figure, but what if the real threat is something we haven't even seen yet? Izumi's eyes widened. What do you mean? He looked down, his fists clenched. What if there's something bigger than this? Something worse that we don't know about? The organization, they're playing us. Izumi's heart raced. The idea had been lurking in the back of her mind, but hearing it out loud felt like a punch to the gut. She hadn't considered the possibility that they were being manipulated, that the organization's true plans were far more intricate than she had realized. I don't know if I can do this, Izumi muttered, the weight of everything pressing down on her. Bakugo stepped forward, his hand resting on her shoulder. You've already come this far. We've come this far, and we're not stopping now. Just as Izumi opened her mouth to respond, the ground beneath them shook. A sudden explosion erupted from a nearby building, sending debris flying through the air. The shockwave hit them with enough force to knock them off their feet. What the hell? Bakugo shouted, regaining his footing. Izumi's heart pounded as she looked toward the source of the explosion. The sky above them darkened, the air crackling with an ominous energy. Something was happening, something big, and it wasn't just a random attack. The team rushed to the scene, their bodies tense, ready for whatever awaited them. As they neared the epicenter of the explosion, the figure in the mask appeared before them once more, standing tall in the midst of the chaos. The air around them shimmered with dark energy, and their eyes gleamed with malicious intent. You've walked right into my trap, the figure's distorted voice echoed. Izumi's breath hitched as she realized what had just happened. This wasn't just an attack, it was a message. A message telling them they were too late, that they had already lost. Bakugo stepped forward, his hands crackling with power. Not happening. We're not backing down. The masked figure raised a hand, and in an instant, the ground beneath their feet cracked open, revealing a massive underground cavern. Shadows swirled within, and from the darkness, figures began to emerge, more of the twisted, dark beings that had once been part of Nocturne's army. But these were different, stronger, more dangerous. Izumi felt a cold chill run down her spine. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and the battle that awaited them would be unlike any they had faced before. "I warned you," the figure said, their voice now echoing through the cavern. "Your time is over. This is the end." The last thing Izumi saw before everything went dark was the figure's cold, unfeeling eyes staring into hers, as if daring her to challenge them. And just like that, everything went silent. The screen went black, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, breathless, waiting for what would come next. But no answers would come. Not yet. If you want to see how this battle unfolds, how Izumi and Bakugo fight back against an enemy more powerful than they ever imagined, then let's aim for 40 likes. If we hit that goal, I'll upload part 2 of this story. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.